No, Keith Stewart, regularly scheduled program, 3 p.m. Wednesday. You're at the course.
Yes.
And I was talking Wednesday, two things. One, you were right about the changes to the course last week. And without the wind for a few days, the playability was a lot easier. You don't typically see on Sunday Eric Van Rooyen going 11 under or whatever he did at the Honda Classic. And forever it'll be called the Honda Classic. So this week, we've played this up. Historically, this has been an even tougher test. Number one in difficulty in 2021. You get single-digit winning scores. You get -4 in 2022 with Scheffler. You get Rory complaining about not rewarding good shots, 76 on the weekend. I guess what we're expecting is the course is going to be the same as we know Bay Hill to be. Wind is going to be up on the weekend. What do you see out there right now walking the course? You're there.
So, good afternoon, everyone.
Keith Stewart, read the line, @readtheline_.
It's interesting. Heading into the week, doing our initial research over the weekend that we all do before I get here, it looked like rain Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, not that windy, and turf reports weren't great. So I get here Monday, walk around Monday, Tuesday. Monday, we got a decent amount of rain. Tuesday, we didn't get any rain. It was a beautiful day. And today it was supposed to pour all day long, and it rained overnight Tuesday, Wednesday, but it hasn't rained much at all today. So the extra softness that I thought we were going to get leading into this week isn't there. The golf course is still softer than historically the Bay Hill bounce that we're so accustomed to is. And I think it will remain softer than what we remember from Bay Hill, but it's not going to be super soft like we first thought it was. The rain that we thought we were going to get hasn't shown up. The rough is rough. I would say on a Bay Hill scale of 1 to 10, we've seen a 10. I would put it about 6.5, 7. So if you are going to put some premium or some weight on some things, I would definitely be accuracy off the tee is going to be a thing. Bay Hill is going to play like about 80% Bay Hill. So I think it'll be a double-digit winner, but and it won't
like 11-12. 11-12.
Yeah, it's going to play like a major championship because this is a major championship style par 72 golf course. And the wind is, it's tough to call. Right now, they're only saying it's going to be in the mid-teens, which means here in Orlando, Bay Hill's amongst the lakes. I used to work across the lake at Isleworth Country Club, and I've spent 5 years of my life in and around this region. And it gets windier here than what even they're going to show you on like Weather Underground or something by maybe 3 to 5 miles an hour, can get a little gusty. So we could see 20 over the weekend. Saturday will be the worst day. But by that time, if we do get some bounce out of this place, that's when it'll also be the most bouncy. I still think 11-12 does it.
So, quietly, and I've said this before, but you hear some players historically, and it's Arnie's place. It's revered. He was the revered figure in golf, understandably so. I've heard from players in the past they don't necessarily love this course. It's difficult. The long par threes, over 200 yards, not something that's favorite of players. You could tell me I'm wrong. But looking into the style of player you want this week, again, ball striking, iron play. It's the PGA Tour. Welcome to it, right? I just sort of thought, okay, the par three scoring historically is the par threes are some of the most difficult on tour. 3 of them are over 200 yards. They all play top 9, top 10 most difficult on the course. And then I looked into, long approach shots, long iron approach shots, statistically in the years that the players did well, over 200 yards proximity, which again, it's a statistic. Sometimes it doesn't measure a whole lot, but if you look at it in those years, the years that Bryson won, Hatton won, Leishman won, they all were number 1, top 10 long approach iron players, plus Leishman, Sandbelt player, wind. Hatton, Lee Westwood, always a good iron player, win narrative, right? It seems to me that distance control in the wind, long iron play Leishman success at Torrey Pines, same sort of thing. That sort of indicated to me that that's the style of player. Look at his top 5. Tom Hoagie, right? Again.
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong here or tell me I'm right in terms of that style of player this week. Oh, God. We lost him. Either he's stymied on this question or we've lost Keith. I'm going to sit here and pray he comes back. Let me see if I can do it. We lost Keith. Not again. I'm going to sit here and wait because his point I either befuddled him so much that he stopped thinking about it, or there it is. We'll get him back. I'm going to sit here and talk about this for a second. Here's the things I want. I'm going to make sure that he comes back. Here's the things I'm going to ask Keith once he comes back. One, about that question about the style of play we want this week, which historically in our notes is long iron player, success in the wind, sandbelt player, Australian, British Open types. And then we're going to ask about the chalk, right? Scotty Scheffler, for one. Is the putter going to be reformed? Number two is the big Minwoo Lee question. And if you have questions or comments, please put them in the comment section on YouTube or in the Discord. Run Pure Sports. And Hideki's back, right? I mean, I said this Monday with Andy. I thought that in the ranges that we were talking about, 9-8 plus, 8-7 plus, 7-7 plus. Let me see if Keith has texted me. Just come back on that link. You stalled. There we go. In that range, I thought that because of ownership and because of their skill set and because of conservative play at Bay Hill, which you need to have with these low scoring events, Morikawa and Max Homa in that mid-9 range. There's Keith. Don't worry. I didn't quit. I did not quit on us. I held it together.
Well, there's a room full of people here that are all on the same Wi-Fi. So
no, I understand that. That's okay. So going the iron question, the type of player you were about to answer that.
So this is why I take notes, because things crash or whatever. But
that's okay.
You brought up four things that I want to touch upon with your soliloquy there. Number one, this is one of the few weeks that we're going to weigh bogey avoidance over 30 or better percentage, because the average winner here over the last 10 years has needed 18, 19 birdies or subpar scores, but they're winning at 10 under. So let's pay attention to bogey avoidance, okay? Number two is that one of the reasons that the guys don't love this golf course is because it is extremely repetitive. And what I mean by that is that if you shared your screen and you brought up like a Google Maps overhead of the golf course, when Dick Wilson made this place in 1961, God rest his soul, but this isn't his finest design. And I love Mr. Palmer. He's been a huge influence on my career. I worked here in town, but they haven't really changed it. And what I mean by this is that the first hole starts out dogleg left. Boom. Second hole, long par 3, downhill 220. Well, that's the same as the 17th hole. The third hole, dogleg left around a lake. Fourth hole, par 5, straight up a hill, long. Fifth hole is a par 4, short, down the hill. Well, 11 is the same as 3. 12 is the same as 4. 5 is the same as 13. So you play. So if you can play those types of holes well, then you love this place because you repeat the same holes like 7 times. If you don't, then you're upset that this is a signature event because this just isn't your golf course, right? And you really need power to get around here. You touched upon the par 3s and par 3 scoring. Par 4 scoring is always going to be one of your number one indicators. for trying to separate from a field. We have 10 of them here, and that's primarily why it's like that at every golf course. The more par fours you add, the more that becomes an influence. But it's very rarely that par three scoring or strokes gained on the par threes is double the influence that it is on the par fives. So everybody scores on par fives, right?
Yeah.
But you have to be a good long iron player to score on these par threes. And I know you were making that point, but when you play long iron shots here, because of the Bay Hill bounce, and it'll be there at times this week, it's not just being a good long iron player. There's a lot of great long iron players like a Colin Morikawa, but guys like Rory, guys like Scotty, guys like Mark Leishman, guys like Bryson that have had success here, they launch the ball super, super high. And from home, you would never know what that means. You just look at strokes gained numbers. But when you go on the range or you watch these guys and
Apex.
you walk at the tournament and you got to see apex height. And so apex height for a guy that's really good with his long irons is an incredible advantage. I'd throw Cantley in that group too. It's
What was
just
Jason Day? Jason Day.
Winner, exactly.
Right.
I don't think there's a big sandbelt sort of influence here like there is at Riviera, but I definitely look at trajectory at 200 yards. And even though it's a little softer this week, then those shots will just even be closer. So it's still a huge. It's the number one edge here for sure. It's trajectory and long iron play.
Who are the guys in that bucket of long iron trajectory high, up and down, land softer? Rory.
Well, you look at the guys who've had the most success here over the year. Rory's number one for sure. Scotty for sure. In this field, I like Cantley, Ludwig. JT hits the ball very high with his long irons. One of the best fairway wood players ever. Long iron player. It's probably pretty average. Cam Young.
Yeah.
So it's like the comparison between, like, what do you love about Cam Young and Will Zalatoris is that they launch the ball to the sky and they're accurate versus, a guy like Tommy Fleetwood who tends to trap it more, hits it a little lower. Yeah, he's a great iron player and he's great in the wind and everything, but he's doing it because he's hitting it low. We want these guys that hit moon balls and, helps mitigate the Bay Hill bounce.
And then you correlate that with, again, firm and fast and windy and, apex height at Augusta National, Will Zalatoris, Cam Young, Rory, same sort of, methodology here.
Yeah.
Gary Woodland's had terrible success at, historically at Augusta National. He's trying to hit a ball higher because of that reason alone. So here's the $1 million question. Well, there's actually a few $1 million questions this week. From an ownership perspective on DraftKings, they really mispriced a guy named Min-Woo Lee, right? Who you like. We'll get to him in a second.
Yeah.
But the biggest question is, because to me, my gut shot is, I think that this is even before the news of the Scheffler, is like, I think that this is the week that he's going to turn around the putter, not even 100%, but even a marginal amount, and just smoke this field. I just feel like this is the week. He grew a beard, then he changed the putters. What is you before this show, you specifically went and followed Scheffler putting. What's your take? Am I wrong?
The stroke still has issues, and I don't see that it has changed. The tool has changed. That might add more stability at impact. But overall, I still think Scotty's a better putter from 20 feet than 5. I think, we talked about the bridge analogy. He's stuck in between all these wholesale changes, and is that the right path? Or do you go back to like the stroke you used to win the Masters? We're coming up on a year. When's the last time we had a number one golfer in the world not win for a year? It's been a while.
Yeah.
It's been a while. That, a guy that's been there for a full year and hasn't won in that time period, it's been a while. And he was putting side by side with Cam Young, and Cam Young looked so much more comfortable. You just can't hide it. And he knows
everyone that's standing around the putting green are just staring at him. Scotty, that is. He knows it. And there's only one way to prove that it's going to be better. It's to do what you just said, which is go nuclear with the thing and actually take advantage of his ball striking.
Yeah, so in that high range, then and a Cam Young is in the mid range, and it's somewhat difficult following Cam Young because sometimes he breaks your heart, but he played well enough last week at the Honda/Cognizant that gave me a lot of interest in his play this week. But the one name is Cantlay, you mentioned. I'll give him the pass on Sunday for the illness going around Riviera. I think otherwise he would have closed pretty well. But yeah. I think Cantlay is going to, for even Cantlay, because of the vacuum that's going to be Rory and Scheffler, and even Hovland to an extent, and there's a Xander cult. I think Cantlay's probably conservative golfer, hits fairways, trajectory, great putter, can win in these tough courses. I think he's one of my favorites.
I love Cantlay this week for all those reasons. He was sick, and people could scream in the comments and say, oh, like he doesn't close. Hey, trust me, that guy is so well suited for this place. He showed up once and he came in fourth. And it's so I sit in this room, this big tent, and this is where all the press conferences are. The two guys that sounded the most comfortable with their golf game and ready to attack a very difficult golf course were Will Zalatoris and Patrick Cantlay. The two guys that sounded like they were working with their new coaches, mind you, and talked a lot about their journey over the winter and how they're trying to get ready for major season were Xander and Victor Hovland. So you take that for what it is. But if you have access to the PGA Tour interview transcripts, you can go look at it. But Xander's with Chris Como now. He's not full time with his dad anymore. And Victor not only has moved from Stillwater over here to Palm Beach, but he's also with Grant Waite. And he was asked why he has so many teachers in such a short career, and he says, "I have a lot of questions." And his transcript, when it comes through, because it just happened like half an hour ago, Victor was very open about the fact that he plays golf to flush the golf ball, and then from there he believes he will win. And he said that my short game was vastly improved at the end of last year, but he goes, I hit the ball terrible at Memorial. Like, Matt, he won at Memorial, right? Like, right, Victor, what are we doing? So it's those two in the room here seemed a little bit unsettled. Other guys that were in here, like Kurt Kitayama, I don't know that he's going to repeat, and the other guy that was in here yesterday was Eric Cole, and everyone kind of danced around, and gave it. Well, they gave a pass because that was like his Super Bowl, and there's just too much going on, And there's been 2 or 3 golfers that have proven over time that they can handle all that stuff, and Tiger and Phil are 2 of them. The rest of them, when they turn into politicians versus players, it doesn't go well. It just doesn't. And man, Patrick Cantlay sounds like he's really, really motivated right now, which is cool.
Yeah. And the other one was, you mentioned Cam Young. Now he will be, I think the market really likes him too, but historically he's had a good course history here. I think he's got all the tools, and I can get behind Cam Young this week. And you said he felt comfortable. Sorry. Someone needed time?
Yeah. No, well, no, we're good.
Okay.
So we have to be able to build a narrative around why someone would win. Okay. So let's talk about, I'll go real brief with Cantlay. Cantlay is killing it on Thursdays. His stroke average is 64.6. He gets off to a hot start, gets windy over the weekend. He's a great long iron player, great driver of the golf ball, scrambles and putts well. Okay, so you see him getting out early, just holding on for the weekend. He wins. Great player, right? Cam Young, really great driver of the golf ball. We know he needs to scramble better and putt better. He did that at Cognizant, and you see he finishes 4th, right? He's back to the ball striking, repeating the ball striking that he had in that rookie year where he's like second at Riv, third at the PGA. He's doing those types of things again, but it seems like he's getting more and more comfortable with the putter. And to me, that's a good sign. The story behind him is that he's a Wake Forest guy. He's going to need something special to break through. Arnold Palmer went to Wake Forest. This is Arnold Palmer's home, right?
Right.
The chat can chew me up if you want, but for sentimental reasons, shit happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
So if Will Zalatoris or Cam Young wins this week, you can guarantee Dan Hicks is going to talk about it ad nauseum. That these Wake Forest alumni, they want to play.
Yes.
But here's the reason why that narrative works. They want to win for the king at his home place as a fellow alum. So they're a little extra motivated. And if the golf gods are a little extra motivated, that's how a guy like Cam Young finally breaks through and maybe justifies his place.
That's the thing in golf when there's not a lot of correlation to anything. You want to find these little minor edges, whether you see a golfer fighting it, whether you see Scheffler still struggling with it, whether you see Homa upset on the driving range, whether you see Cantlay sick. And so if you see someone comfortable and have that extra, I mean, listen, everyone wants to win this tournament, but who wants their Zalatoris non-winner on tour, Cam Young non-winner on tour, but probably the two closest to it out of anyone on tour. The other big question is the deeper play. And this is not maybe relative to your line of business because, at Read the Line, which everyone should join, follow, subscribe to Keith's work. But on the fantasy side, Minwoo Lee was a complete misprice in the DraftKings markets. Okay, so it's caused a lot of controversy as to whether or not it's a free square this week as to play him, regardless of ownership. But Minwoo Lee is someone, I mean, he's fantastic, right? But what do you think about him this week in living up to that billing because of his price?
Yeah, I wanted to, when we got to the show, that was my first question for you was like, how is it that EVR and Minwoo Lee are 6,600 after the way that they've played recently? I mean, those are two guys that would have been a huge DFS focus for this. I mean, DraftKings doesn't miss that wide of the mark. Why do you think that is? I'm just curious.
They were late ads, right? It pricing typically tracks. Well, it always tracks the initial betting market, and they were late ads. They realized it was a misprint, but they're not going to change it. So here we are. So you're living in a world where Minwoo and Eric Van Rooyen will be almost half owned by the entire field, which for a 6K golfer is unheard of, right? So every lineup will have at least one of those two. But to me, there's a lot of ownership pivot play. I mean, listen, Tony, founder of RPS, is firmly on Minwoo Lee as a good play, and it should be. It's like, okay, would you pick Scotty Scheffler first if there was no pricing? Yes. Well, then play him first. Would you pick Minwoo Lee if you could? Of course. But for the people who are ownership, you there, Keith? He's dead again. You there, Keith?
I'm here. I just turned the camera off because it was. I'm here.
Lagging.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
But to me, it's like, okay, if not Minwoo Lee or EVR, I can hear you.
I'm here.
Then Hadwin or Cam Davis, right, in that same range. Like Cam Davis to me is really interesting. But I still love Minwoo Lee as a play. And I think he makes a lot of lineups and different things work. But that's the biggest question for people was, what do you see from Minwoo Lee this week? You say he's really confident? He looks confident?
So Minwoo Lee looks uber confident. I mean, the guy oozes swag all the time, whether he's hitting it good or not. But he's never hit it good before here. He's missed the cut both times grossly. His stroke average is over 77. And what's interesting about that, Matt, is that last year he went from here to leading the players the next week. So that would give me even more pause that maybe this isn't a great setup for him. because then he went up to, Ponte Vedra and he played good less than a week later. So I don't know. The misprice almost makes it something that you have to do. But from a betting perspective, I can't put him on any card. Maybe I'll feature him in some matchups over the weekend or a late ad, but I just don't see it. This place, the repetitive design of this golf place feeds the same golfers. If you struggled here before, he's a young player. That doesn't mean he can't evolve. But if I just can't sit here and say to an audience that even though he looks uber confident, that things are suddenly going to match up, because it wasn't just one missed cut. It was 2 years in a row and it wasn't close. So what's going to change? Hey, I might miss the boat, and I'm sorry for that, but I'm me, I'm a long play sort of guy. So I'm going to go with the people I think give me the best chance for 4 straight days of the lowest score, and then we'll go from there. And I have more questions than answers than I do about Minwoo Lee. Sorry.
Oh, what about, okay, then, so in the sort of like dark horse range of players, perhaps with course history, perhaps with not, then who is your Valmaki? Who is your Sam Ryder? By the way, great call last week. Who is the guy you're seeing out there that may be under the radar that you think could fit the eye line of this course and loves its repetitive nature?
Well, there's a couple guys that have had some great success here that are certainly going to be low on the leverage pool. One's will be Chris Kirk, and another will be Andrew Putnam. Now, I know those aren't Valimaki-ish type bombs, but they are guys that are certainly people aren't necessarily focused on. I think in some of the ranges that you talk about, not enough people are talking about Adam Scott. Adam Scott is hitting the ball better on approach than, there's only 2 guys in the field that are hitting the ball better on approach. One would be EVR and the other one would be Matthew Pavon. And if people aren't paying attention to what Matthew Pavon is doing, that guy should be like a fundamental brick of everyone's DFS. I haven't seen, I saw him on the West Coast, but I didn't really watch him. So this afternoon, I went and watched him on the range, and I'm like, man, does this guy stripe it? I'm like, forget the fact that you just don't know who it is, or forget the fact he's from France, or who cares? This guy flat out flushes it, Matt. And his move is super simple. And where somebody might look at a Thomas Dietrich or a guy like that who has another simple move, you could just tell that this thing is built to last. And we've seen it. He was great coming off the DP World Tour. He earned his card. He comes over here. If not for two double bogeys or 2 bad swings last week, he finishes in the top 5 or 10 again. And the guy's a machine. He's got a win at Farmers. Everyone's like, oh, is he long enough? He won Farmers. That's like 8,000 yards long. He's a guy. It's interesting to me. But
Well,
I could talk about him for a while after what I watched.
Plus, look at correlation. Look at correlation, right? I mean, you got Tiger winning 8 times at Bay Hill, and then you've got Tiger winning at Torrey Pines 1 billion times, and then smaller subset, Leishman won at both as well. So Pavon wins at Torrey Pines, and and not fluky either. I mean, he dominated down the stretch.
That's another reason why I love Adam Scott this week. He built his game to mirror Tiger Woods. He wanted to do all the things that Tiger could do. And there were times in his career where he approached that level, and he's getting back there again. Forget his age. He's gaining like almost 2 shots on approach in his last 5 measured shot length events. It's really good. He's got one of those lab putters that's going to save Lucas Glover.
We lost him. That's the thing. That's the thing with Keith. It's like he's a comet, and you gotta catch what you can while he's here. But let me summarize it, because he may not come back. Summarize it for this audience. Repetitive golf course, length important, long iron play, apex height of your long irons, course history a must. There he is.
Yeah, I just I went to the phone. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, it's even better now.
Yeah.
I was just saying, I was just summarizing because I didn't want to lose you again, but it was very important that, sort of the synopsis of this course is repetitive. It's long. You want apex height in your long irons. Course history is important. Wake Forest pushed narrative because of the Arnold Palmer connection. And some guys just doesn't fit their eye. And then the edge seeking is guys who feel really comfortable here and confident. And in that sort of square you've got right now, the Zalatoris's, the Cantlays, Adam Scott, you were just touching on. Pavon really hits your eye well, and he'll be sub 10% owned in the DraftKings markets. And a Cam Young who's confident. And I think that's a good subset of players that people can start chewing on this week. If you want to play off the super highly owned Minwoo Lees or Scotty Scheffler, who, outside of my personal bias or my confirmation bias about him, his putter doesn't appear to be back in shape. So, in your opinion, though, from if you had these, the guy that you think will win this week, is it Cantlay for you?
It's tough for me to get past Cantlay, 100%. Yeah. There's another name at the top that we haven't touched upon. That is another. I don't know how you have the ownership there, but I don't know how chalky he is in the DFS space. People are talking a little bit more about Cam in that range, but in that range, right around a similar price, depending on where you go, is Sam Burns. And Sam Burns is quietly doing something out here that he hasn't done in his career. And the guy's already won 5 times. And he wins in Florida. He wins on Bermuda grass. And he is hitting the driver probably better than he's ever hit it in his career. And when he does that, he wins. JT can't putt. Scotty can't putt. Rory can't putt. Sam Burns can putt.
But
right?
he's wedged 2 missed cuts here in between a top 10. And, I had him at Riviera, and he sort of backdoored this top 10 at Riviera, and he really has had 4 top 10s in a row.
Yep.
So I love Sam Burns, and I think the market does too a little bit, but how do you explain the course history then if you're on that sort of wavelength? Miscut, 9th miscut. Is it just a bad year, or what was it?
Well, even if you take Adam Scott, who's finished here 3rd a couple times, he's missed some cuts. You can have a bad year, right? Mm-hmm. You could be a Will Zalatoris who struck it great one year and just couldn't putt, and you missed the cut. All of us that are around the same age forever compare everything to Tiger. Well, guys, gals, we're not going to get people to just make 142 cuts in a row. We're not. Okay. Steven Yeager had 22 in a row. Goodbye. Right. Last week,
Goodbye.
You're gonna have moments. I mean, it's really, to this day, there's 2 things that Tiger did that will never be touched. Probably 6 USGA events in a row as a kid, and then the 142 in a row cut streak. I don't see how somebody does it. It's like Wayne Gretzky, 50 goals in 35 games. I don't see how somebody does it. Right. Like I can't wrap my head around that. And I think that Burns, who's played here because they host AJGA events here as juniors, he's played well here as a kid. He has a top 10 as a professional. You could have an off year, right? Last year you say he missed the cut. 3 weeks later, he went and he won the match play. I was there in Austin. Right. So he wasn't that far off. So for me, the fact that if he went 40th miscut, 25th miscut, I wouldn't be saying this. But if you could top 10 at this place, then that means you could figure it out. And if he's doing the things he's been doing for now 4 straight events, and you can say all you want that he backdoored a top 10 at Riv, but Riv's a major championship test. And in that field, he was hitting the ball well enough to, within reason, compete for the title there on Sunday. And that's, to me, that definitely puts him in the conversation here. He's playing some special golf, and these are the people that we have to pay attention to. And
three names. One you sort of quickly shuffled over, but the name came out and people wanted to talk about it, is Putnam. I haven't heard Putnam once this week, but why are you saying Putnam? Or why did you mention him? Or was that my mistake?
No, I mentioned him. He's down there in that land with like the Zadenhout, where from what I've seen and some history here and Bermuda grass putting, that I feel like there could be an edge there.
Okay.
You know, I'd be lying if I said I could explain Sammy Valimaki in Mexico. You know,
well, Putnam is a top 5 at Bay Hill, so
no. And folks, realistically, those things aren't going to happen every week, and
right.
it's going to be tougher to do that in an elite field than it is with Sam Ryder, who's from Florida, who goes to a place he's been historically great, who's in a larger field. You know, I mean, there's 69 guys here, of which a third of them, you know, can probably win. So for us to get. For me to get right, the one guy that's below 7,200 in DFS in this field that's going to top 5, I mean, I got news for you folks. We'll do the best we can, but it's hard in these fields, you know, to come up with these people.
But in the Bryson year, he was 5 shots back and finished top 5. He finished 4th behind Corey Connors. So, you know, not out of reach in terms of something that he can accomplish here. That's Andrew Putnam. And the other one was Matsuyama, Chris Kirk. I love. You know, what has Chris Kirk done wrong? I mean, over the last, the season, honestly,
his putting could be a little better.
Right.
But I'm splitting hairs there. But he likes this place. I watched him. He was hitting balls next to Valimaki today when you and I were texting earlier, and Chris just, 66 on Sunday, wrapped up a nice defense of his title there at Honda. Had his moments, but they were more with the putter than anything else. He's definitely a guy here. And another one, like you were asking about names that are comfortable here. I mean, you got to talk about Keegan Bradley. And I know he had a bad missed cut the last time out at Riviera, but I don't picture Keegan as a Riv guy. I picture Keegan as a Florida guy. And, he lives in Jupiter down there. Very good. Knows the texture of the ground here, the short game, everything. And he's like a top 20.
He knows the carpet. He's on the carpet. He likes the carpet.
Yes. He likes the carpet. Yep.
And the last one, two. Morikawa you mentioned. I kind of think he's sneaky this week. But Matsuyama, initially I thought, it's the PGA. What have you done for me lately? People will forget his Riv win because he's been gone for a couple of weeks. And then his price is fantastic. Cam Young will suck a lot of ownership from him. But then it came out that he might be injured. Have you sensed anything like that? Have you heard anything about that, Matsuyama? Any interviews about him being injured?
No, but I haven't seen him much. And
okay.
if you had a chance for $4 million or $3.6 million, you'd be here practicing. I call it back in what was it, August at the Tour Championship. Everybody was surprised on Thursday when Rory had back pain on the range, right? I was not. And they said, Keith, why didn't you tell us? I said, well, I didn't know. I don't know what's wrong with Rory. All I can tell you is that he didn't show up Monday. He didn't show up Tuesday. He had a press conference on Wednesday. He didn't practice before or after it. He never played a practice hole. And then he showed up on Thursday. Now, with a guy who won 3 times in 10 years at East Lake, do you find that odd, Matt? I find it odd.
Yeah.
But I can't put my finger on, I'm not in his camp. I didn't ask him personally, do you feel okay? But then it didn't surprise me when something was up. I mean, you always see those social media posts. They're like, if you bet $100 on Victor all year, you would have won this, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I feel like you should just bet against Hideki in 72-hole matches all year for $100, and then know that he's going to withdraw like 6 times, and you'll win for the year. That's like it's a play. Especially since he got that big win. What's he next focused on? He's focused on, he was great last year at the Players. He was top 5, and then he'll be focused on Augusta.
So if all the and before you bounced off just a second ago, all those things align in terms of the in terms of the schematic of the player that will do well this week, which takes a lot. And there's still a lot of wild card stuff, and you still have to have a lot of luck. Like even Chris Kirk last week, I remember the short putts he missed. That probably would have put him into real contention. But that's golf and that's life. But in terms of the luck, which you can't predict, but in terms of the things you can, the comfort at this course, the motivation, the bounce you feel in his step, how he feels in the interview room, his conservative nature of golf, flawless skill set, which there are only a few on tour that have a flawless skill set, and I would say Patrick Cantlay is probably one of them. Do all those things, if you had to point to someone, are they pointing to Cantlay? Just as a final word here.
Yes. Okay. And it's worth mentioning that his coach is one of the people that I know best on tour.
Who's his coach?
A guy by the name of Jamie Mulligan, who's an absolute legend. He's an incredible human being, and he is just Patrick is motivated. Patrick is striping it, and Patrick legitimately won't give. Like, they asked him in the press conference, they said, "Would you have won if you weren't sick?" He goes, I was sick, but I wasn't sick. That's not an excuse. I should have won."
Yeah, so he's stung a little bit by that, and he wants it back. I was going to say that we talk back and forth privately with just the people who obsess over golf. Is that who are the players on tour, at least in the last few years, at certain points that had really flawless game? At some point, you can make an argument for Tony Finau. There was nothing he was doing wrong. I think he's regressed a little bit, at least right now. Rahm, of course. Scheffler, but his putter is really lagging a little bit, and it still seems to be that case. You could say that Cantlay's probably the best skilled player on tour all around. I mean, in terms of flawless game, I don't know who else is in that class as of this very moment.
Well, when you look at the two most well-rounded golfers we talk about all the time are the two buddies, Xander and Patrick, right?
Yes.
Xander is working with a new coach, Chris Como. He's grinding away, and to his credit, he's still earning top 15 starts. But there's obviously when it comes down, push comes to shove, there's some negative commentary about the way he closes tournaments. Well, obviously the guy's thinking about his swing change and he's not comfortable. So when you're really pushed at the end, when you're really pushed, not Thursday, but when your psyche is really tested at the end, you fail, and it's right now. I think you're right. I think Patrick has the most well-rounded game, and that's why he continues to win at big venues or contend at big venues, because he just drives it so good, and his long iron game's so good, and he's above average putter and scrambler. So those things just come together. He
doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
The Iceman.
I believe this could be a green jacket year. I put that in my notes, I think in 2019 when I was out at Augusta, and I was just following Cantlay around. I said, some point he is going to win this, and just put him in your lineups every year, just because of those reasons. And that Xander and he, Cantlay, have nearly identical statistically careers on paper. Money, major finishes, wins, top 10s, top 20s, top 5s. I just think that in terms of the edge from a mental standpoint and where he is in his game, Cantlay's flawless.
Cantlay reminds me a lot of Phil. He reminds me a lot of Phil in that he just needed one major to finally prove to himself that he could be a closer. And then he would go off, right? And we would all admit that Phil looked like a different golfer after he won his first Masters, the infamous jump, right, in the putt. And I think you could get a similar run out of a guy that's literally that good at everything.
At everything.
A big thing that a lot of people don't talk about here is the scrambling you need. You have 2 short par 4s. You've got the 4 par 5s. You don't hit them all in 2. You have to be able to scramble around this place, and you got to be able to save par on these par 3s. So, like, it's not always just saving par where short game is imperative. Short game is really important when you're 50 yards off a tight lie in front of a tuck pin on a par 5, and you gotta hit the thing with some speed at the bottom off of a tight lie, and be confident, and then 2 bounce, spin, stop right next to the pin inside 4 feet, and you make your birdie on your par 5. Like that skill. He's really good at pitching the golf ball. Really good.
Well, you said bogey avoidance is so critical here. Well, how do you avoid bogeys? Well, short game, right? I mean, you like, it's like at Riviera. I was seeing people eject, and then you see Jason Day on the par 3. I forget which hole it was. He hits one 50 yards right into the Kikuya, which for a normal person within 15 feet is a miracle shot. And he hit it to 9 feet in a clutch moment under pressure, knowing, what he can do. And that's the elevation of the game of these people. And that's what makes them the best golfers in the world. That's what makes them the best major winners, is because they can have the difficulty test of their game. They meet it. And I don't there's not a lot Cantlay doesn't do wrong. I mean, you want to talk about bogey avoidance right now on tour? Who's the guy that's probably going to do it least? If you take putters of Scotty Scheffler into consideration, it's probably him. So,
hey, if you want to be the last thing I'll say about Cantlay, if you want to be critical about him under the gun, who was the one guy? There was probably 2 guys, but who was one of the 2 guys in Rome that stepped up? And Max being the other guy, but people weren't actively antagonizing Max. If anything, they were cheering him on. The crowd was actively anti-Cantlay, and that guy shoved it.
It fueled it. It fueled
it.
Right?
And he came down. Forget the last putt. That last putt doesn't matter if he doesn't go birdie to finish. Where you need a partner, and his partner was Wyndham Clark, who was the only thing he did that week was open his mouth.
Was run his mouth.
That's it.
But
so like
people said, oh, Cantlay doesn't like crowds. I said, bullshit. I've seen him feed off crowds plenty of times in his career, and he has that sort of Brooks clutch gene, which Brooks actually creates a negative edge for himself. He finds antagonists. He becomes the antagonist and gets people against him, so he plays better. And Tiger did that internally himself too. So it's kind of a rare thing. So yeah, I think that Cantlay's got it. You've talked me into it big time this week. So
yeah, I mean, in summary, if you went to Wake Forest, Will and Cam, Burns, deeper down the board. I love what Scotty's doing, and then we spent enough time on the Iceman. But
all right, brother, thank you for your time. I know you're busy out there. As always, love everything you do.
It's great to be with your audience, and I love the comment section. So, folks, next week's a big week. Players, let's get twice as many comments up there, and I'll double up my Wi-Fi strength. I promise.
I said last year when we did the Cut Sweat show, and you told me privately that if there was a GoPro on me, that shit would have gone viral because you were running into ropes and stuff. Not out of the question this year. So, peace, brother. Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Read the line, folks. Bye-bye.
Read the line. Read the line _. He's gone. He's like fucking Batman. You turn your back and he's gone. All right, folks. Good luck this week. Andy's at 8:00. Private members only show. But RPS 15. Let's join us. You get to talk to these guys in the Discord all day. If you join, we're going to afford better internet. Let's do it.